Let's talk in this next series of lectures about some of the basic and advanced leadership skills and tasks. While leadership can involve into kind of many esoteric and complex considerations, taking care of basic or even mundane aspects of your groups will help them be successful. Having a well-defined and well-managed group structure has been repeatedly shown to positively impact the outcome of our group members. Now, while structural design depends in part on theoretical approach, treatment goals, agency conducting the group, there are many structural parameters that are consistent across models that show positive outcome. So I think the first choice here is scheduling a group. It's often a challenge, as scheduling a viable time when all group members can meet is not a simple task. Changing a group time of an established time can be next to an impossible task. Generally, I try to make sure every member says everything they want about changing a time of a group. When I'm starting a group, I feel like I can pick a time that works in my schedule that I think will also work for the population, the people I'm trying to serve in that group. So what this means is that often early mornings, I know group leaders who have groups at 6:30 or 7, late afternoons, 3, 4, 5, evenings, 6, 7, even 8 o'clock, lunch hours, or even weekends, or times when people are often not in work and have flexibility to attend a group. I think leaders need to be careful because once a time is set, it's very hard, almost impossible, to change groups given the schedules of the varied members. And I don't think it is a good ethical fidelity to change a group time to meet the leader's current needs, and which, if that means someone else cannot attend that group. So the next topic I want to talk about is group size. Group size can be determined by many factors, including the supply of referrals, and for those in an agency, kind of the needs, limitations, and constraints of that organization will affect group size. The nature of the group also influences group size. As form follows function, the size of the group will kind of impact on the type of group, what can be learned, how much the members can participate. Traditionally, psychodynamic groups kind of have smaller membership, between 6 and 12. Sometimes it can get up to 15. I think it's designed to kind of optimize a variety of interpersonal interactions. Now, psychoeducational, CBT, skills building groups that are more structured with a classroom aspect, tend to kind of accommodate larger group membership. Group size matters. Comparatively small groups are often thought to kind of evoke family of origin dynamics, while a greater number of members may kind of evoke kind of regressive large group societal dynamic. Some members will feel more at ease and safer in smaller groups, but a smaller group also requires that each member participate more and is more active. In larger group, the leader needs to be alert to those members who may have a tendency to hide or remain withdrawn, and find a way to try to get those members engaged. I think logistics also plays a role in determining group size. Not every clinician or clinic has room for larger groups. Cramming a group into too small a space can kind of disturb one's personal space. Or sustaining a group with only a few members can be a challenge, particularly if there are a lot of absences. So clearly one size does not fit all. The therapist needs to consider the kind of factors I'm talking about to figure out what would be the best size for the group they're trying to conduct. And you have to have some sensitivity to kind of the physical arrangement. Can all members see each other in the group, which I think is ideal? I generally don't like couches with 3 seats in it because the person on the ends often cannot see each other. In my experience, I have led groups of 2 people, or even, and somebody has been absent and it's more like individual therapy. I find I have to be more engaged, more active, somewhat more client-like, I think, to have these very small groups kind of continue and have a flow to them. I've also led a variety of large groups ranging from 30 to 60 people. And in those groups, I think the dynamics take on a life of their own, kind of large group dynamics, which you will read about in the article Large Group Dynamics that's in your syllabus for the other class. And what's trying to be accomplished here, it might be kind of unearthing kind of organizational dynamics in an agency setting, or maybe kind of getting in touch with the social unconscious or collective unconscious that a large group with a large diversity of voices can impact. So what you're trying to accomplish and what your group members need will kind of impact the size of the groups that you like. Personally, I like groups 8 members is a size that I particularly like. Many of my groups have 5 members. I also lead a group now that has 13 members, which seems to be functioning well, but have fairly mature members that are willing to engage and share the talking time. So let's talk about whether your group should be open or closed and what exactly that means. I think members need to know from the start about the permeability of the external boundary of the group. Whether the group is open, meaning new members will be able to join the group, or once the group starts, it's closed and new members will not join after that part. A group is a cohort that kind of collectively experiences various teachings, learning experiences, and in a closed group, this kind of cohort goes through the same beginning, middle, and end phases. Where in an open group, we'll have people with different levels of experience of the what has happened in group, how to be a group member, the didactic material presented. Oftentimes, this is a choice made by an agency that will have a preference for small groups or larger groups, whether they'll be opened or closed. So in some ways, as a newer clinician, you have to be accommodating of kind of what is happening from your administration about how they want to run groups and what they feel is best for the clients and the client's needs, and also kind of the agency survival in some time. Often I think there's a lot of prep work that comes if you're doing a closed group with everyone about how to be in group. If you're doing an open group, I think it's best to talk about what it's like to have new members, the pros being new voices, diverse views, new possibilities for interpersonal learning, and then the potential cons are often they may not like the member, there'll be less talking time for themselves. Let's talk about group therapy dosage. This is another vital choice that either group leaders or organizations can make. What's going to be the frequency of the group, the spacing between sessions, and the length of sessions? Very little research is done on this. I think generally speaking, curriculum-based groups often rely on kind of the well-established format of 12 sessions conducted weekly for 90 minutes each. Of course, there are many other dosage possibilities. For example, some training groups, you will go and be in a group for 8 hours a day for 2 or 3 days, or for the entire week. So the research has generally been conducted on weekly groups ranging from an hour to 2 hours. So if working within an empirical time frame, repeating that would be you're kind of practicing what has been shown to be effective. But following blindly kind of what has done before kind of closes the idea of new possibilities and new ways of learning and growing. So I think you can think about the impact of a weekly group where people kind of build a certain momentum, put it in their schedule easily. I can think of some groups I've been a member of or have led that just met for a couple days over years, and a couple days a year over multiple years. And I think it's a fascinating format, and that people change a dramatic amount throughout the course of a year. And I think one of the learnings from that experience they had is that people in that first year kind of get a view or paradigm or transference of the members, and then have a very hard time letting that go. I think it can really show kind of rigidity of thought in this kind of highly spaced out group over the course of years. So let's talk about managing time boundaries. The leader's management of time boundaries, I think, are ongoing and dynamic and not static. If a group comes to trust that it will begin and end on time, a greater sense of security and safety can ensure, which in turn I think creates greater freedom for the members to take psychological risks and have increased focus in the protected time and space. If those boundaries are poorly regulated, all the rules that constitute the therapeutic framework could feel less dependable. The leader's competent management of time boundary leads to a sense that a group will be held and contained. Competency in time management includes handling those inevitable instances and situations where members fail to comply with the time boundaries. While wanting to kind of preserve the therapeutic frames, the leader's primary stance around such boundaries, I think, should be curious, not punitive. For example, if a member routinely comes late, a possible response could be, "I wonder how people are understanding Dan's difficulty using his full time with us." If a member desires to leave early regularly, a member may ask, "What would have to happen for us to avoid this conflict in the future?" As a leader, it is important to look at the meaning of potential time boundary difficulties or violations. Does coming late reflect, for example, a defensive maneuver of rejecting others before an anticipated rejection? Is it a way of drawing negative attention to oneself? Is it an indirect or nonverbal communication of how out of control someone's life feels and how much containment is desired? You will come across situations where members will get sick, be involved in a different training, have a work project, and will need to miss groups for an extended period of time or once a month. I think discussing the impact of that group is the impact on the group and the member, I think, is very important. I think sometimes time boundary difficulties is a way of expressing disappointment or desire to leave the group, or communication that needs aren't getting met. So let's talk about keeping the group on track and keeping the group on task in our next talk.